Dear students, today I'll talk about the story Old Man at the Bridge by Ernest Miller Hemingway. Ernest Miller Hemingway was an American novelist, short story writer, and journalist. He was born on 21st July 1899 in Oak Park, US. After high school, he spent few months in Kansas City as a reporter. He published his debut novel, The Sun Also Rises, in 1926. His economical style had a strong influence on 20th century fiction, while his adventurous life and public image influenced later generations. He published seven novels, six short story collections, and two non-fiction works. In 1918, he was seriously wounded and returned home. His novel, A Farewell to Arms, was the result of his first wartime experiences. Most of his works are known to be the classics of American literature. He wrote For Whom the Bell Tolls in 1940 when he returned from Spanish Civil War, where he had been a journalist. Shortly after the publication of The Old Man and the Sea in 1952, Hemingway went on safari to Africa, where he was almost killed in two successive plane crashes, and for his remaining life he was left in pain. He killed himself in 1961. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1954. The title of the story, Old Man at the Bridge, is very appropriate because the story revolves around the old man who has left his hometown during the Spanish Civil War and has arrived at the bridge for safety. It is at the bridge that the narrator engages the old man in conversation. The old man expresses his concern about the safety of his animals that he has left behind. He thinks that the cat will be all right, but is worried about the safety of the other animals. The narrator is worried about the safety of the old man, whereas the old man is worried about the safety of his animals. The narrator asks the old man not to think about his animals and to get up and walk to the tracks and leave that place. But the old man, who has already walked 12 kilometers on foot, expresses his inability to walk due to fatigue. He remains at the bridge, thus the story has an apt title. The story, Old Man at the Bridge by Ernest Hemingway, is set in the backdrop of Spanish Civil War in 1938. It is about a conversation between a war correspondent and an old man who had to leave his hometown during the Spanish Civil War. Hemingway was appointed by the North American Newspaper Association, but he apparently decided to write it as a short story instead of a news article. As the title Old Man at the Bridge suggests, the story revolves around the old man. This very short and simple story is a powerful depiction of how war affects the lives of common people who are without politics. The old man has nothing to do with the impending war, but still he had to leave his home and his beloved pets, whom he regards as his family. The man's love for his native town is expressed in his smile while uttering the name of San Carlos. Moreover, his innocence and love for the animals are quite evident in the story. But such an old man was forced to leave his native place and his pet, his only purpose of life, and he is now left on the hands of fate. The authors tried to draw sympathy for the man by portraying the goodness in his character. So the themes present in the short story are suffering of common people in war, man's love for animals, love for one's native place. One striking achievement of Hemingway here is the vivid portrayal of the character of the old man, the protagonist of the story in such a short length. The story is narrated in first person narrative techniques and the speaker tells the story from his angle. The language used is very lucid and the conversational style makes the story more live. The story is a great example of unadorned and simple style peculiar to Hemingway. The story starts with a description of an old man who was sitting at a bridge. It was a warlike situation as the fastest forces were advancing towards Ebro. A narrator, a corps correspondent, was in charge to cross a mountain bridge to check the advancement of the enemy forces. He saw that an old man with steel-rimmed spectacles and dusty clothes was sitting beside the road at the bridge, while cars, trucks, and people were crossing the bridge to a safe distance from the enemies. The old man looked too tired to walk any further. The story deals with the themes of resignation, depression, and impending death. This theme is reflected in a conversation between a soldier and an old man who had to leave his hometown during the Spanish Civil War, so he resigns himself to his fate. Seeing the old man sitting there for a long time, the speaker went to him and asked him where he came from. The old man answered that he was coming from San Carlos, his native town 12 kilometers away from there. The man smiled as it was a pleasure to him to mention his native land. Then the speaker had a chat with that man and came to know that the 76-year-old man had no one but pets, two goats, a cat, and 8 pigeons. They were his family, and he spent his time looking after the animals. Now that the enemy forces are approaching, he was asked to leave the place, so he was forced to leave his pets on their fate. The old man is not anxious about what would happen to his family, the animals. He thinks that the cat would be able to look after itself. But what about the pigeons and the goats? He asked the narrator to guess what would happen to his pets. The speaker consoles him that they will be fine. He asks the old man if he left the dove cage unlocked. As the old man answers in the assertive, he suggests that they will fly, but he cannot throw light on the future of the goats. Then a narrator urged the man to get up and try to walk further, as he would now leave. The man tried to walk but could not. He sat down again in the dust. The narrator mentioned that it was Easter Sunday and a grey overcast day. He finishes the story by commenting that there was nothing in favor of the old man except the fact that the enemy planes were not up in the sky for the overcast weather and that the cats can look after themselves. The narrator, who was more concerned for the old man's safety than those of the animals, inquired what the old man's politics was. The old man replied that he had none. He told the narrator that he was an old man of 76 and had come 12 kilometers and was too tired to go further. The narrator told him to walk up the road and catch a ride on a truck to Barcelona. The old man thanked him, but continued to express his concern over the fate of the animals he had left behind. The narrator reassured him, saying the animals would be fine. The narrator told him that the pigeons would fly away, but the old man continued to worry about the goats. The narrator told him that it was better not to think about them and that he should get up and walk to the trucks and leave that place. He thanked the narrator and got to his feet, swayed from side to side, and then sat down backwards in the dust. He reflected his obsession about the fate of his animals, and then he remarked that he was only taking care of animals. The narrator felt pity for the old man and remarked that there was nothing to do about him. He thought that the old man's only luck was that cats could look after themselves and that the day was overcast, so the fastest were unable to launch their planes. The story, Old Man at the Bridge, deals with the themes of resignation, depression, and impending death. This theme is reflected in a conversation between a soldier and an old man who had to leave his hometown during the Spanish Civil War. The old man is gripped by panic and anxiety. He is a fatalistic hero of the story who is resigned to his fate as a casualty of war. When the soldier, who is concerned about the safety of the old man, tells him to walk up the road and catch a ride on the truck to Barcelona, he tells him that he is an old man of 76 and is too tired to go further, so he resigns himself to his fate. Then the soldier reflects that he is sure to be killed once the fascists advance to the bridge across the Ebro. His life is prolonged by the fact that the day is overcast and the fastest cannot launch their planes. His mind is eased by the fact that cats can look after themselves, but aside from that, the soldier says that nothing can be done for him and his death seems certain. The soldier seems more affected by the inevitability of the man's probable fate than by the old man. On the other hand, the old man is worried about the fate of his animals. He can't get rid of the thought of safety of his animals. This gives him depression. When the soldier tells him that it is best not to think about his animals, he is unable to stop thinking about them. This leads to him to depression. At the close of the story, the narrator bemoans the old man's impending death. He asks him to walk and catch a ride on the truck to Barcelona, but the old man expresses his inability to walk due to fatigue. The soldier begins to feel pity for him and says there was nothing to do about him. In this story, The Old Man and the Bridge, the author wants to convey his opposition to war because war spreads panic and anxiety all around. Everyone becomes aware of the impending death. Confusion and chaos prevail everywhere. During the Spanish Civil War, an old man with spectacles sits exhausted by the side of a road near a pontoon bridge. The soldier gets engaged in conversation with the old man. During the conversation, the soldier comes to know that the old man is worried about the fate of his animals that he had left behind. The soldier is concerned about the safety of the old man, whereas the old man is concerned about the safety of his animals. He tells the old man to get up and catch a ride on a truck to Barcelona. He wants the old man to save his life, but the old man, who is 76 and has walked 12 kilometers, tells the soldier that he is too tired to walk and catch a ride on a truck. The old man thanks the soldier for his concern for his safety, but he continues to express his concern about the fate of his animals that he had left behind. At the end of the story, the soldier feels pity for the old man and thinks there was nothing to do about him. The story reflects that war brings depression, anxiety, and scare of death. So the author expresses his opposition to war. He conveys a message that war should be opposed and avoided. The old man, the protagonist of the story, Old Man at the Bridge, is a healthy and energetic old man of 76. He is physically fit and agile. During the Spanish Civil War, he has to walk 12 kilometers from his hometown to the bridge. He has to leave his place because a captain told him to leave the town because of artillery fire during the Spanish Civil War. He has no family, but he loves his animals. He has the charge of two goats, a cat, and four pair of pigeons. He is forced to leave his farm and animals behind, but he is worried about the safety of his animals. During his conversation with the soldier at the bridge, he reveals that he is not worried about the safety of his own life because he is a fatalist, but he expresses his deep concern about the safety of his animals. He tells the soldier that he is not worried about the cat because cats can look after themselves, but he is worried about the fate of other animals. He cannot get rid of the thought about the safety of his animals. This thought makes him depressed and sad. The old man symbolizes the men and women who have to leave their homes as victims of war with which they have nothing to do. The old man is a victim of the war, like the goats, because the goats, unlike the pigeons, cannot fly. The narrator in the story is the soldier who comes in contact with an old man at the bridge where people are crossing to flee from the Spanish Civil War. The soldier is a scout whose duty is to cross the bridge and find out how far the enemy is advanced. He engages himself in conversation with the old man. During conversation, he comes to know that the old man is worried more about the safety of his animals, whom he has left behind in his hometown, than his own safety. On the other hand, the narrator is worried about the safety of the old man. He tells the old man to take a ride on a truck to Barcelona and save himself, but he refuses to do so. The narrator feels sad about the inability of the old man's fate and feels pity for him, saying there was nothing to do about him. He bemoans the old man's impending death. The conversation reflects the old man's fatalism and the narrator's despair in a subtle manner. Critical appreciation of the story, conversational form. The old man at the bridge is related through a conversation between a soldier and an old man who had to leave his hometown during the Spanish Civil War. The conversation takes place at the bridge where the soldier is performing his duty. The story conveys the problems faced by people as victims of war in the form of a dialogue. The conversation advances the story further and takes it to logical conclusion. The theme of the story and the characteristic traits of the two characters involved in the conversation are revealed through conversation. First person. The story is written in the first person and narrated by a nameless soldier whose duty is to observe the advancing of the enemy. The soldier has captured the atmosphere of war and the helplessness of the people as victims of war in his conversation with the old man who was forced to leave his hometown and animals behind. He has explored the region and the situation by suggestive hints. The first person narrative helps the reader to identify with the scene of threat and helplessness. Metaphors and symbols. The story abounds in metaphors and symbols. One of the symbols is the bridge, which represents uncertainty and dangers. The pigeons symbolize peace and harmony, and the fact that they fly away from the war may be a reference to the refugees who flee from the war to a safer place. The cat is a symbol of independence who does not need anybody to survive. That the goat is often used as a satirical animal, and this probably represents the old man who reconciles himself with his impending death. Language: the story is narrated in a conversational form and the language used is simple, but several simple words are symbolic in significance. The style is lucid and intelligible. The dialogue between the soldier and the old man takes the story forward. The simple conversation reveals the characteristic traits of the speakers and reflects the theme of the story. Thank you.